Lewis Hamilton evangelists around the world can rejoice as Lewis Hamilton's just turned 39. Many say that F1 is a young man's game and that 39 is far too old to be winning another championship, but Nigel Mansell disagrees. Big Nigel, who of course won a championship in 1992 with a dominant Williams, says that all that Lewis needs to be concerned about this year and next is motivation, that he has the will and the skill to win himself another championship, and indeed those are the only things preventing him. Now this is techie for me, because far be it for me to be the one to disagree with Nigel Mansell. He has infinitely more knowledge about F1 in his little toe than I ever can aspire to. But there are very many threads to pull at with this subject topic. First and foremost, we're comparing and contrasting apples and oranges, aren't we, Nigel? Your era in 1992 was very different from Lewis's this and next year. In Scuderia Ferrari, he'll be 40. When Nigel won his championship, he was 39. Nigel had a dominant Williams car designed by some fella called Adrian Newey. Lewis will be presented by a very different challenge this year in that Mercedes, and similarly next year in that Scuderia Ferrari car. Oh, and by the way, key amongst the differences between 92 and 24, the number of rounds. 92, 16 rounds. 2024, 24 rounds. And you can argue a 39-year-old is always going to struggle as far as his endurance and his resilience as versus, I say, 26-year-old Max Verstappen. Now, you guys know that I like to waste my time watching a plethora of sports, and I'm reminded imminently of the rule of 35, being that in UFC, no fighter at 155 pounds has ever won a title aged 35 or older. Now, we got a test of that thesis yesterday when my favourite fighter, a chap incredible at the weight called Alexander Volkanovski, never been beaten hitherto, was tested by a young buck called Ilya Topuria. This is his first fight at age 35 or older. For some people, they're that good that age is just the number, and that's what I thought would happen with Alexander, but guess what? Volkanovski lost. The curse in the UFC is real, and this is what got me to thinking about the predicament facing Lewis Hamilton. Now, whilst the rule of 35 doesn't quite translate over to F1, not like for like anyway, but if you look at the last 30 years, the modern day era of F1, only 3 men have won a championship at 35 years old or older, those being Lewis Hamilton, Schumacher and Alain Prost. So outstanding are each one of those drivers in the annals of history that you could argue that those are the exception that prove the rule even. Now, Hamilton detractors will say there have been signs of decline as far as Lewis's racecraft over the past 24 months. Take Qatar, the incident with George Russell as an example, for which Hamilton was to blame. Similarly, Alonso in Spa. Now, maybe these are genuine signs of decline. However, I'd argue that previous seasons, Lewis wasn't in the midfield to have these incidents. So if we're comparing and contrasting again, this isn't like for like. Most F1 aficionados would argue that Lewis is every bit the driver that he was in 2007 or 2018 even. Still brilliant on his throttle and steering inputs. Still a god tier F1 driver. But George did beat Lewis Hamilton in 22 and again best him in quali in 23. Not a great sign. But modern science and research is advancing, I hear you say. And the likes of LeBron and Tom Brady are proof positive that athletes can go for longer at the highest level in 24. And whilst that might be true, Father Time is still undefeated, undisputed. He's irrepressible, not least in the upper echelons of motorsport, being F1. Because in his first season at Ferrari, Lewis will have just hit the big 4-0 and he'll have a plethora of worries, a new project, a new car to develop, a new working culture, a brand new teammate who's ultra quick in Charles Leclerc. Because if Lewis genuinely harbours aspirations of winning a record-breaking 8th World Championship, then the biggest obstacle in front of him is history. Because in its 73-year tenure, the only drivers to win F1 World Championships at 40 years or older, Brabham in 66, Farina in 50, and some chap called Juan Manuel Fangio. Oh, he's got a mountain to climb, has Sir Lewis.